It's that time of year again. Earth Hour 2023. This is I don't know who made it, but it is a World War II vintage fluorescent shop light equivalent fixture, but it's of course much higher quality than a lot of the LED garbage you can get nowadays, or even any fluorescent fixture that's been available in like the past 10-15 years. Actually probably a lot longer, like going back at least in the 1980s. But definitely, mid-2000s and more recently. Yeah, that fixture. And also a little bit of historical what have you about it. I know it is no older than 1942 because it has a 6-wire 2-lamp ballast where the compensating inductance for the capacitively ballasted lamp is built into the ballast. I do have my Mitchell fluoro array, which I'm not running. That one is like 1938 to maybe 1942, because that has a separate compensator inductor. And this is an F20T12 under cabinet fixture. It's fitted with a General Electric Chroma 50 color fluorescent lamp, so daylight-ish. And from what I remember, fairly high color rendering index. And of course, magnetically ballasted, as you can tell by the camera banding artifacts. Two 45-watt PAR38 halogen lamps. Another 45-watt PAR38 halogen lamp. This one's had a somewhat interesting failure where the outer envelope has leaked and most of the aluminization on the reflector is gone. So I may pull that from service as a collector specimen. A triple head 90-watt PAR38 fixture. My 100-watt miniature mercury bucket light. 50-watt American Electric high-pressure sodium floodlight. And a bit of storm damage. That made a bit of a dent, given that I estimate that chunk of tree weighs probably like 400 to 700 pounds at least. Yeah, that would have been bad to have hit you, and there's quite a few of these around. See, it's going to be a busy spring cutting all this up. Fun. My fairly loud 70-watt high-pressure sodium bucket light. Because this one, it's an American Electric fixture. This is characteristic of a lot of their 1970s and 1980s fixtures. It has an unvarnished ballast, and so it gets quite loud. Got a pair of 70-watt high-pressure sodium bucket lights on this one tree. Because the fixture on the right that has the broken off lens, that was already here, and I put this fixture on the left up temporarily because in the next couple of weeks this tree isn't going to be here because I'm putting in either about 15 or about 30 kilowatts of solar, depending on how much balance of system equipment I can acquire over the course of this spring. So yeah, figured might as well, because this is this tree's last Earth Hour, might as well give it a fitting send-off. That is a 100-watt metal halide bucket light. It's the Woods, I forget what the part number is, but that's one of those shapy Chinesium fixtures where you generally don't want to use the stock lamp, or at least be prepared to replace the stock lamp when it dies in the next couple of months. So that fixture is fitted with a warm white 100-watt Philips ceramic metal halide lamp, because those will work on M90 ballasts. And they're actually a very good solution because they also last about twice as long as the quartz arc tube metal halide lamps, and they're a bit more efficient and with excellent color quality. This thing is not that far off incandescent or halogen. There's one of my Steinco mercury floodlights. This one's actually fitted with a 175-watt high-pressure mercury lamp. There's a bit of light spill on the bottom because I've actually got the ballast housing open because a bit of water got in, and so I'm using the ballast as its own bake-out heater. I can't easily see it there, but there's the 240-volt power strip that's feeding it, and two other lights, because This fixture is a quad tap ballast, and right now, for reasons of practicality, it's wired for 240 volts. This is a 50 watt ceramic metal halide spotlight. It can also take quartz lamps, or quartz discharge tube lamps, but I've got a ceramic lamp in it because they last a lot longer. And this one also is a warm white Phillips Ceramilux. I think that's a trade name. And yeah, not that far off of incandescent light quality. And like 80 something lumens per watt before ballast losses, which ain't bad. This fixture is also 240 volts, but it's got a quad tap ballast, so it could be 120, 208, 240, or 277. This is a Hungarian made 240 volt 60 watt GLS lamp. It's got a medium dual contact bayonet base, so it's in a British cord grip lamp holder there. This is, of course, running on the same 240 volt circuit or line as the other two fixtures. And I just got it behind one of my sun power photovoltaic arrays just to serve as a rain canopy, because even though it's stopped raining, it's still dribbling a little bit, and I don't want the lamp to get wet and bust. This lamp, I think, was made in either Budapest or Nagykanisa, but don't know exactly which one. And there's what may be a factory code on it, but it is horribly smeared, and General Electric doesn't typically do factory codes anyway. At least not on these lamps as far as I can tell. Here's my other Stanco mercury / metal halide floodlight. This fixture right now is fitted with a 150 watt type M107 metal halide lamp, which, if you've never heard of them, is an energy saving alternative, or I should technically say reduced power alternative, to a M57 175 watt metal halide lamp. Basically, the arc tube is, or not the arc tube, well, yeah, about the arc tube, but the arc gap between the electrodes is about a 1/4 inch shorter. So it works on the same general principle as F34T12 and F28T8 linear fluorescent lamps, except instead of having a different gas mix to have a lower potential drop across the discharge in operation, this just has a physically shorter discharge. And of course that does come at the expense of slightly higher power losses in the ballast. So you really want to use these with ballasts that are rated for the M107 lamp. And of course this is a tri-rated ballast, so it's good for M107, M57, metal halide lamps, and H39 175 watt high pressure mercury lamps. And right there's the power strip, because this fixture is also 240 volts, because it's on the end of about 650-ish feet of extension cords. This is a 100 watt high pressure sodium, kind of a downlight. It's meant for mounting on the exterior wall of a building, and it shines down and out. I'm using it kind of as a floodlight just because I don't really have any buildings that justify a fixture of this design right now. But for the price I got it for, works just fine as a floodlight, really. It's wired for 240 volts right now, but it has a quad tap, 120, 208, 240, 277 quad rated ballast. And again, this is on the same 650 odd foot length of extension cord as the metal halide fixture just featured. And this fixture also has a standby high pressure sodium lamp fitted in it, so any kind of momentary interruptions of the power supply, and the fixture will start right up, which is useful. And it also means that the lamp is good for a bare minimum of 40,000 hours, which is, a lot better than a lot of LEDs can manage. And of course you have the really good high pressure sodium light color, which it's yellow and like, shut up. It's good for a lot of applications, especially pissing off greenies because they're stupid. 100 watt Lithonia high pressure mercury floodlight there. 35 watt high pressure sodium floodlight there, and 35 watt low pressure sodium Thorn Beta 5 streetlight. Yeah. And there's a 40 watt 235 volt GLS lamp. It's actually rated for 230 to 240 volts, but that usually means sign potentials in the middle of that range, so 235 volts, which actually isn't that uncommon, at least in Europe. Ordinarily it just looks like a standard 40 watt GLS lamp, but the shape is a bit funky, and that's because this is one of my first actual Soviet made lamps. This is a Raznal lamp, so Stalanovitz SSSR. Even though it says made in USSR on it in English, this is most likely an export lamp. Yes, I did do that. And one characteristic of a lot of Soviet-made GLS lamps is instead of the main bowl or bulb of the envelope being almost spherical, this one's a lot more oblate spheroidal. So it's actually a lot more kind of like a pinched sphere like that. But yeah, it does a job. And interesting as a collector specimen, yeah. Granted, I started collecting in 2005, and I didn't get my first Soviet or Russian made lamps until last Christmas, so things can take a while. 60 watt Canadian made Philips GLS lamp right there. And another one. Almost forgot about this one, but earth hour is less than half over. This is a clamp light with I think a 10.5 inch reflector, which is fairly big for these things. Fitted with a Bulbright 75 watt GLS lamp. It's one of those, for the mid to late 2000s, quite cheap lamps. I got this lamp in sometime in 2008 because I got it from, what was it, lightbulbemporium.com, who went under sometime a few years later, and they were a bunch of idiots because much of your order they wouldn't ship. Pricks. But, or a common characteristic of these cheap, for the time, Bulbright lamps is they use a high nitrogen gas fill because they're made on the same production lines that make really cheap and nasty 220 to about 250 or 260 volt lamps for the third world, and so they'll use typically a nitrogen gas mix, and so these are quite inefficient by the standards of general lighting service lamps. And of course, having a 5 support filament doesn't help, because each filament support wire takes a sufficient amount of heat out of the filament to cause about a 1% drop in luminous efficacy. So yeah, this lamp's only good for like about 1,000 lumens versus about 1,000 to 1,200 and change for a unsupported, usually a C9. No, not C9. This is a C9 filament, a C8 filament, which is one of the ones where the filament is more or less, you know, in the major axis of the lamp. And of course, the reason for the high nitrogen fill is a lot of it's due to cost, because nitrogen's a lot cheaper than argon, and also to suppress arcing, because these lamps are too cheap to employ, you know, really good fusing or base designs to prevent you know, catastrophic arcing failure at end of life. And last but certainly not least, this bucket light. It's a modified Lights of America Fluorex fixture, which are, you know, garbage, as those of you who are collectors will know. But you rip the ballast out and direct wire the lamp holder, along with the notes, which I don't think are still visible because I modified this fixture probably about 12 years ago, and the reflector's gotten quite corroded. Oh yeah, it's there. Use 60 watt GLS or 42 watt CFL max. Also tells you how long ago I did that, because I didn't mention LED lamps, which I do use in some applications, but only where they make sense, because, you know, engineer and all that jazz. This is a 53 watt H&H lighting, American made a very long life GLS lamp. This lamp is rated for 12,000 hours, I think. Yep, Super V, 12,000 hour. It's there on the edge along with their telephone number, and they still have a decent number of these things in stock. So, because of the lamp ban garbage, which looks like it's been finalized to take effect July 1st, I might be getting a couple of cases if I can financially swing it. And of course, one reason for using incandescent, besides the light quality, is because about 85% of the energy that goes into the filament is turned into infrared light, and it really helps my infrared security cameras that are lighting up the area where this fixture is. Like, really, really bright on camera. But hey, it's almost like these things have a purpose or something. Actually, a lot more efficient at IR than LEDs, or infrared LEDs.